We're go for launch. T-minus
15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1. Ignition.
It's the time of year when ghostly goings-on are very much the topic of conversation. So for this week's Open Country, I've come to Pluckley, which is near Ashford in Kent. And this village has quite a sinister claim to fame. It is apparently the most haunted village in Britain. So for this week's programme, I'm going to go on a little ghost tour of my own to meet some of the locals, not the local ghosts, hopefully, and find out how the village's reputation actually affects the lives of people who live here. I'm going to have a chat with the owners of the hotel that I'm staying in. It's Elvie Farm Hotel, and it's run by Jeff Moody and Simon Peake. Now, a beautiful old building, Kentish farmsteadings that you've converted into this hotel?
Yeah, it was built in 1406. It was a medieval hall house. And in the main farmhouse, not much has changed since then.
Right, so you've set up a business here. When you were thinking about doing this, did you know that Pluckley had this reputation?
Yes, I knew the reputation that Pluckley had. I didn't know the reputation of Elvie Farm until we'd put in an offer and had it accepted. And then I started to research it on the internet and hear about all the ghosts that are supposed to be here.
You didn't have second thoughts then?
Yes, I think I did.
Did you, Simon?
Yes, I think we did have second thoughts. After we'd paid the deposit and found out more about it, it was like, is this a really good idea to go and live in a haunted house? But it's turned out okay, so...
But Pluckley, now you read about it before you came here, you knew what you were letting yourself in for. It has lists of ghosts. I mean, like... Well, I don't know.
I mean, there's 12 recognised named ghosts, but then other people say there's an awful lot more. I mean, I think somebody's counted something like 28, so there's an awful lot of them, and it's in the Guinness Book of Records. It's the most haunted village in the country.
And they counted what in this great record? The likes of what?
There is the highwayman who is up over there on Fright Corner. He used to hide in a hollow tree and then jump out at people to rob them. And apparently the legend is that he was struck through the heart with a sword while he was hiding in the hollow of the tree. And it's his spirit that haunts Fright Corner. And then there's the watercress lady, is my favourite one. And we've actually named a dish in the restaurant after the watercress lady.
Yeah, we sell the watercress lady's lunch.
Yeah.
She's,
what happened to her and why is she so ghostly?
She had two vices in life. She was around in Victorian times. She had a love of gin and a love of smoking. And one night she was at the little stream just behind us and she had too much gin and she ended up pouring it all over her tunic. She then lit her pipe and set fire to her tunic. So, to put the fire out, she jumped into the stream and drowned. And she's the one that a lot of people actually say they can see. A lot of Pluckley residents...
See the character of the lady?
Yes, yeah. People see a strange glow coming out of the water in the middle of the night.
And of course, I'm going, get it. No way. Can't be. I would, be quite sceptical about that sort of thing. But maybe when you come here and spend some time here, and like you, when you come to live in this place, you get a better sense of what might be going on. What about here in what used to be this, what did you say, 14th century manor
1400,
house?
yeah.
1400s, right.
Yeah.
If you think about it, the house has been here since 1406, I think they've dated it to. So the number of people that have lived here, been born here, died here, we've got to leave something behind. And we do actually have our own official ghost.
Yes, he's the ghost of a man called Edward Brett, and he was a farmer that lived here, and he shot himself in 1900 in the old dairy, and he is the one that I heard. It was the day we moved in, and I was here on my own, and I walked past the old dairy, and I heard, clear as day, this voice say, "I will." And as you can imagine, it completely freaked me out, having heard the stories. And about a fortnight later, somebody came to the farm and showed us a newspaper clipping from the inquest of the farmer that lived here, that shot himself in 1900 in the old dairy. And his last words were, "I will do it."
Have you sensed, heard, felt Anything else?
There's a very strange situation with light bulbs in the restaurant. There's one particular light socket, and if you put the wrong sort of bulb in that fitting, the next morning the bulb has come out of its fitting and it is on the floor at the other side of the restaurant. And it's not broken, and the filament is still intact. So you could put it back in and it would work again fine. And you can't explain that, because if it had just popped out for some bizarre reason...
It would be smashed.
It would be smashed.
So here you are, you're now residents of Pluckley, and you have stories to share with other Pluckley residents. And because of the village's reputation, scores of people come to the village.
Yeah.
So while I think you're actually quietly proud, it's a very public thing, this haunted Pluckley village.
Mm-hmm.
Thousands of people, is that exaggerating?
No, I don't think it is, really. I mean, Halloween is insane here. It's mad. People come from miles around to look for the ghosts.
Now, Pluckley is, well, it's quite a small village, but it's spread out quite a bit. And there is no street lighting. So thankfully I've got my torch here. And to meet the McDonald's in the churchyard, I think, yeah, here we are. Welcome to the Parish Church of St Nicholas, Pluckley. I'm definitely in the right place because there are beams of light ahead of me flashing up and down the stone of the church here. I'm presuming that's the McDonald's. Hello?
Hello.
Hello, Rosemary.
Hello.
What a great setting to meet you. I'm Helen. Hello.
How
Nice
do you
to meet
do?
you.
And you too.
This is a beautiful old church. Isn't it super just to be able to pick it out in the beams of our torch?
Absolutely fantastic.
Do you know when it dates back to?
1093.
Oh, your husband's here
Yes,
as well. Hello.
My husband's here as well. 1093.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes. It's pretty wonderful, isn't it?
Does it have its ghost?
There is supposedly one of the Deering women from the Deering family. I don't know whether she was looking for a child, her child, or one that had already died, but supposedly she wanders around and even knocks from time to time in the Deering chapel.
How do you, Rosemary, feel about this whole idea of these stories circulating around Pluckley and beyond? As a local resident, you're running a business here, a bed and breakfast?
Yes, I run a small bed and breakfast here in the village. We get a lot of the rowdy ghost hunters, which find more spirits inside them from drinking in the pub. But we do occasionally have serious people. They come out at different times of the sort of moon cycle, and they take it quite seriously.
How does this reputation affect villagers? You know, you're describing how they gather here together at St Nicholas's. Is there much talk about it?
Not amongst the locals. It's the visitors that come to the village.
And Halloween obviously is the peak period for people who come down to seek out the ghosts of Pluckley.
Yes. Up until probably 25 years ago, we didn't have the big hype that there is now.
Whose fault is that? Yes, I can see you, even in the darkness, looking right at me.
Some of the locals, some of the media.
You see, you can't help but ask yourself, why Pluckley? You know, why are all these stories circulating round here? Where do people pass these stories on? You know how you've heard about the woman in the church here and the knocking. Where did you hear that story?
Through my parents, who knew a vicar in the village. It was one of the old vicars in the village, who's sadly no longer with us anymore. And he was very down to earth and nothing worried him, but he actually used to hear this woman on a regular basis.
But it could have been the heating. You know how that knocks
It could have
sometimes.
been the heating, but he was used to being in the church in the middle of the day. And it wasn't in the evenings, it wasn't at night, it was just something he used to hear.
Does it add something special to the village, or does it take away from the place?
I don't know that it's adds to the village. The filming of The Darling Buds of May added to the village. But the ghosts, from our point of view, and having lived here on and off for the last 50 years, it doesn't play an important part in our lives.
Right next to the church is the pub The Black Horse, so perhaps one of these places where these stories get spread and are exaggerated. We'll go in. So I'll come in here. Now, I believe that you have just taken over ownership of The Black Horse, and I'm sitting here with Sarah Knight and Paul Murray. We're beside the open fire.
Yeah, we took over 9 weeks ago.
9 weeks ago.
So
And
it was
Sarah, you're
quite
from the
changed.
village
That's
anyway.
right, yeah. Grew
Years
up
ago.
in the village and used to go to the school opposite there. My parents' house has quite a few funny things that have happened over the years when we were growing up. But I think mainly, initially, it was more to do with us moving in, being new, and certain things being moved around and put back, you know, where they should be. And
This is the story about objects moving,
Yeah,
being in a
that's
different place
right.
than where you left them.
That's right, yeah. We used to have even the chairs put against the door so we couldn't get through into the kitchen and things of mornings. You'd have to go around the front of the house and then through the back door via outside. Lights, you know, bulbs popping out of the chandelier, and then a drop 14 foot onto a Pluckley brickwork floor. But they'd still be in one piece. You know, it still worked, and why it happened, you know, perhaps it wasn't insecurely, but it still should have broke popping out of a wrought iron chandelier, you know.
And you talk about it as though it was just like an everyday occurrence. There's no
Well-
fear in your voice or surprise.
At first I thought it could be, when I was really young, my mum getting us into the spirit of things. But apparently, as you kind of talk to people about it, you'll find that a lot of people say when they first move in to the village, especially if it seems to be an old house, that seems to happen with them, that it's things like ornaments and cushions get moved. And then other times where we've called the fire brigade because our lounge filled with smoke and we didn't have the fireplaces alight, so we called the fire brigade. They just searched the house. We thought it must be in the floorboards, something had gone wrong with electrics, but there was nothing, and they said it had no odour and couldn't work out, and they just said, I'm sorry, this is very strange. It was a fog in our living room basically. And
You're
it
not
just
terrified.
I didn't understand at all, but nothing really ever happened to me. However, when my brother's daughter was born, this was recently, when we had her upstairs asleep in her cot, we were downstairs in the kitchen, Mum hangs all brass, and we could hear, it wasn't a squirrel, it wasn't rats or mice or anything, but heavy, clear sounding footsteps running around the cot, and it was shaking the brass together. But I think that's because it was a new member of the family, maybe. I don't know. Because it hasn't happened since, and nothing really happens in between. It's just when a big change or a shift happens of some sort.
You left here to go to London, and that's where you met, and you brought Paul back to the haunted Pluckley, to the Black Horse. It has its own stories, doesn't it, Paul?
All I can say is my own experiences in the 9 weeks we've been here. The room we're talking about upstairs, I'd heard the hype and I'd heard one or two
This is right on the top
stories.
floor?
It is, yeah.
And
It's not
what had you
used.
heard before?
Just that it was a secret room and it was things had gone on in there and it was intriguing. The first time we were allowed to venture up there, we went in and there was one or two things which were odd, and that was it. And I came away thinking, don't really understand what the hype was about, etc., etc. And then we had some friends over, and during the course of that weekend there was a lot of conversations about this particular room. And Sarah had been up there and said that one or two things had moved since we'd been in there, which was only a couple of days earlier. And I just said, look, I've got to just confront my fears, and off I went. I unbolted the door and I went into this room, and for no reason whatsoever I just had this really, really, really chilly, cold sensation. I was freezing cold. It was for a brief period of time, and I came out straight away. And I was a little bit spooked, a little bit freaked, thinking, my goodness, what's just happened there? I couldn't explain what had happened. I just felt freezing cold, not chilly, freezing cold, ice cold. So I came back out, and I'm an ex-soldier, and ex-soldiers will tell you that when they're scared, there's two people they ask for. One's the mother, and the other one's God. And obviously my mother wasn't there, and I said a few prayers. I just said, look, whatever's just happened, don't let it hurt us, please don't let it hurt us.
That's fear.
Built up a little bit of courage and went back in the room on my own, and I was absolutely fine. But I can't explain why I felt freezing cold. It was like just being dipped into a cold bucket of water and dipped back out again. It was just an immediate sensation of being freezing cold. There's a pentagon,
That room
which had been painted on the floor.
Pentagon, there's lots of twigs of the yew tree, red bows. There's a shrine that's been put up with a pentagon and a cross again, and it's
Not
got
by anybody you
bars.
know. It's been
This
there
is
for a
the
long
worst thing.
time.
We cleared it all out. We paid £250 for the locks to be changed. And when Paul said to you about some things have been moved around, the whole lot have been put back again. So bearing in mind this includes 2 chairs which aren't from this premises. So how can someone come through our bar in the day without us seeing, past here and upstairs without us knowing, with 2 chairs that aren't from here?
So you're living with these experiences every day, really, in one way or another. You don't have a huge sense of fear. I can hear that just by talking to you.
I don't know about
Well,
that.
oh, really? Does it get to you
I
sometimes?
just think, it makes me nervous to talk about it in case it encourages it to do more.
Right.
But then at the same time, like you say, you just have a healthy respect for whatever it is. I think any old building generates a history, and there's a remnants of everything left behind, and that's what makes a character of a property and gives you that feel. So hopefully they'll just happily live with us and be pleased with what we're doing with the place and not angry. We're just trying to hope we're doing everything that everyone would want here, because I don't think it is just us living here, to be honest. It doesn't feel like it. And that's the thing, it is nice in that sense that you feel like it's not just the 2 of us here.
To walk in a wood at night time is an eerie experience. It doesn't matter where you are in the country, it can set your nerves a jangle. But when that wood is called the Screaming Wood, well, you really are asking for trouble, I think. But anyway, this is where I've arranged to meet a couple of people from Pluckley. One is a local historian and the other is a member of the parish council. So I just have to follow this path a little bit between the trees. Very spindly trees on the outer edge of the forest. They're like fingers coming out of the ground. I think I'm trying to scare myself. So with me in the Screaming Wood is Jackie Greby and Martin Newman. The Screaming Wood, is that made up, Jackie?
Yes, definitely.
Who by? When? Why do these things happen?
An article was written in a television paper called The 12 Ghosts of Pluckley, and it included the Screaming Woods then. And everyone's called it the Screaming Woods, but really it's Deering Wood.
Yeah, after the family.
After the family that owned the estate.
Now, you've lived in the village a long time, Jackie.
I would say about 33 years.
Okay. And you know quite a lot about the history of the place, of Pluckley.
It's probably one of the oldest villages around. The woods in which we're standing is really ancient woodland. It's part of the ancient Jutish woodland. It stretched from Dover right through to the Isle of Wight. Various tribal chiefs came down into these areas, and Pluckley comes from the word Pluckley, which is a clearing in the woods belonging to a chieftain probably called Plucker.
So that's history, that's written
history.
down, it's recorded.
Yes.
Where did these ghost stories come from? When did they start?
There was a lovely gentleman called Frederick Saunders who lived in Pluckley between the 2 world wars, and he has written several books. One's called Paranormal Kent, and another one was called Pluckley Was My Playground, and in it he mentions the various ghosts of Pluckley.
But where did he get the stories from? They must have been current and locals. Or did he make them up?
The old butcher once told me that when he was at the village school in November, the pub, the Black Horse, had a little culvert running from it which used to catch the rainwater. And on a dank November day, it used to drip down, and the road had cobblestones, and the water ran across the cobblestones, and the boys used to creep up behind the girls saying, "It's the coach and horses coming, look out." Another story with the mill. The miller's son used to catch wild birds, and to keep the owls and things away from his traps, he used to hang cloth up in the rafters of the windmill, and they were black and white and they flapped about. Well, what do you expect? They were ghosts, weren't they?
So am I taking from you, Jackie, you really just don't believe any of this?
If you want to believe, then you can believe. Otherwise, really, it's Pluckley. Something unusual will happen. You put something down and you go to pick it up and it's gone. Well, of course you've got a ghost. It's taken it. If you lived anywhere else, you think, oh, silly me, where on earth have I put it? And you find it somewhere else. In Pluckley, the ghost has moved it to somewhere else.
Well, let's walk through the Screaming Wood just a little bit, because Martin, obviously a very precious piece of woodland, which is now closed off at night
Yes, that's right.
because of the whole ghost hunting thing.
Not so much the ghost hunting, but what people who come looking for kicks leave behind, basically. Unfortunately, it's the small minority that spoils it for everybody else. And they have been camping out in the woods and leaving a lot of mess behind, even graffiti, spraying the trees and so on, which the Woodland Trust, not unreasonably, has decided that to protect the woodland, it should close the car park.
You're new to the area. You were attracted, by the pretty village, the charm of it, the lovely open landscape of this part
Yes,
of
I
Kent?
mean, Pluckley is England at its best. You know, it's lovely. I mean, it was the village where The Darling Buds of May was filmed. And we're surrounded by orchards and sheep. It's glorious, and we're obviously happy for people to come and share that with us. And for the most part, people come and do enjoy themselves and have fun, and we're happy to see them. It's, as ever, the small minority.
But as a member of the parish council, you've had to make certain decisions about what happens, particularly around Halloween.
We have. I mean, we've got Halloween right upon us now, and that's when it's at its worst. We get a large number of people coming into the village, which again is fine, as long as they behave reasonably. And it's gone beyond the trick-or-treat on occasion. And there has been some mischief in the churchyard and with some of the local houses and down here in the woods.
Are you cross about the fact that this village that you've lived in for so long has this reputation?
I don't think it is as bad as it used to be. The worst time was during the early 1990s, when we were inundated with people. There was an arson attack on the school. There were people shooting rocks through children's bedroom windows at 2 o'clock in the morning. The following year, the police closed the village. You had to have a pass to get to your own house. And since then, we have always had a police presence, just keeping the cap on it.
We've tried to have events to turn it into a family occasion, and that's had some success, but the traffic levels have been such that we've had to abandon that. This year, for instance, we're having quite a modest barbecue in the grounds of one of the 3 pubs we have in the village, and that will be a family event, and it will be over by 10.
How do you feel about these stories, or are you a believer or a sceptic?
I'd need to see something myself, I think, to believe in it. Let's put it that way. I'm not uncomfortable with Pluckley having the reputation as the most haunted, because it brings people to the village. And we have a hotel and pubs, and they enjoy the trade from that, of course, and that's for all our good. It's just when it goes wrong that it becomes a problem.
Do the locals, though, not also encourage it?
I think when you're talking to people, they tend to shy away from the reputation. If you are a genuine ghost hunter, or even just curious, if you go to the pub, you buy somebody a drink, you will get ghost stories. But you've got to take them all with a pinch of salt.
Would you rather there were no stories like this? Would you rather just have a village like every other country village in Kent?
I think it makes Pluckley just that little bit special. We're lucky we've got both the Darling Buds, mate, and the ghosts. Pluckley's known almost throughout the world. If you Google Pluckley wherever you are, you'll certainly find something about Pluckley.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think there are the occasional nuisances, but then I guess every village has its old problems here and there. Most of the villagers are happy to live with it and happy to be in Pluckley.
Except at Halloween.
Halloween is special, and it can become an irritant, but there you go, for one night in the year.
Yes.
We'll live with it.
Well, I've finished my tour of Pluckley. I've heard some amazing things, and now I'm returning to my hotel, the Haunted Hotel, in Britain's most haunted village, hoping to get a good night's sleep.